Hi, my name is Lauren Schenkel, and I chose to do my oral presentation on after-school programs and management of after-school programs. So, in researching this, I found two separate things that you can manage an after-school program as either a parent or as obviously a manager, a director, a corporate member. So, in managing as an employee, as a manager, etc., there are a few different steps that you have to implement, and it comes with about 7, starting with the needs assessment. So, in the needs assessment, you'll probably do about an interview, a focus group, anything that it takes for you to find out what your community members are desiring. This can come with finding out the target group, how many are wanting to actually be a part of your after school program. You assess the students, you assess the parent, and you find out what they want. Exactly what it sounds like, a needs assessment. So you find out what they want, what they're desiring, how many are wanting to be in it. Now, with these interviews, you ask them very specific questions. What programs they're wanting, what are they lacking in their current after school program, what could be improved, because on most occasions you're not starting a program from scratch, you're just improving the one that you have. So you need to be very intentional in asking these questions to not lose retention of your numbers or to not deter anyone from going to a already established one, so, a program, of course. So after this needs assessment, after you ask all of these very intentional questions, it can either be as long or as short as you need it to be. You go to a program design. So at this point, you know what your community wants. You know either based on socioeconomic status or gender or age, because most of the time they go from either 6 to 17 with these after school programs. So you know what each age group, what each gender, what each socioeconomic class wants. You need to know very specifically what curriculum you need to write for. So if everyone is asking for sports-based classes, you ask them specifically, what are you lacking in your school that I can bring to you? Because some of the benefits of having an after-school program come with being an extension of school, come with being an extracurricular recreational-based extension. So you're enhancing that school experience. You are linking to it, but you're not replacing it in any way. That's why I've read over and over. You're not replacing the school-based experience. They are there for 8 hours. So you're not replacing it, but you do need to write curriculum very specifically. I myself, when I have a current job for an after-school program and center, so we write specific basic programming for dance, culinary, martial arts is what my studio writes for. And I write for semester 1, semester 2, week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's very specific, saying that they need to learn this in week 1, this in week 2, and that's how so specific it needs to be. Now, in on campus facilities, in private or public schools, it needs to be specific to what they told you that they want. Now, if it's sport based classes, you need to find qualified instructors to possibly write your curriculum for you if you're not capable. That way, you won't be injuring any students. Like I said, you are going from age 6 to 17, and you're developing those students. So you don't want to write at developmental age 18 what they would be doing for a 6-year-old. So that comes with finding a competent staff. So once you find these staff members, you have them write your curriculum, you obviously evaluate them. Evaluations will come at each stage I mentioned. You're evaluating them and you see how they are working with the current staff, obviously, how they work with your children, and then how they meet the needs of what you already established that you need in your community. And then you move over to see, do you need to work with competitions? Do you need to work with workshops? Do you need to establish clubs? Because on most occasions there are clubs at the schools, but sometimes it may be something lacking that the after school program can provide for that student. Again, you are an extension, you're not a replacement. So sometimes it just needs to be open activities to provide social and mental challenges for that student, and providing an option for that is what after school programs do. Then you need to reach out to community members, to partners, to businesses, to see what was done in the past, what's currently being done, and keep yourself in that loop. There are many businesses willing to work with schools, with nonprofit. There are many businesses willing to work and give discounts, willing to see what existing services did you have, either for your district, for your center, if you are starting over, if you are replacing somebody. Sometimes these facts are either hidden from you or they're just organized in a way that you can't decipher. So you need to establish all of this before moving forward, before you waste money, because sometimes it does come down to money, it comes down to your budget. So you do need to establish which community members, which nonprofits, which businesses have worked with you in the past. And in this, you find out which forms you need to fill out, which plans you need to already have done. Sometimes risk management plans. Who is working with you on that? Whether that be the fire department or the police department, who's worked with you previously to come out. Sometimes it's reviewing insurance policies and who has that policy with you. I myself, when we were going through our needs assessment, we asked different parents and students, what new classes should I implement? Which new classes basically would you pay for? And do you think would be successful at the center? A large amount said gymnastics, tumbling. I had an instructor ready. She was already interviewed. She was already approved. I had curriculum ready because it was already approved from another center. We have 11 in our area. It was already approved. But then I find out that our insurance at our central location is not approved to do tumbling based on our building. So if I hadn't previously researched that, I would have gone forward because I had the base amount of students to start a class. So just researching everything for yourself and not going off of previous knowledge is what will keep your kids safe, will keep your job safe. Then you kind of need to go into facilities to see, do you share a facility? Do you need to buy out one? This also goes into transportation. Because I have to find bus transportation for a lot of students from a lot of different districts. But as far as an on-site after school program, you do need to evaluate, do you share that space with anyone? Oftentimes you use the outdoor space and you use the gym. So if you share that space, it comes down to accountability, damaged equipment, to put away equipment, to staff. Do you have the same staff as during school hours? Any safety requirements that are there in place during school that may not be in place for after school programs. And then kind of the what ifs. What if a student is staying after while her parent is picking her up, but she's not in an after school program? Are you responsible for her? Any of these possibilities can come up, and they do come up. You need to establish what is your domain opposed to what's not your domain. This also happens to me. I have two instructors, very opposite, dance and karate, who share a room, but I schedule them for opposite times. In any event that we have a meet the teacher or an open house, they're both there. So I have to cooperate with every other director, every other coordinator to move one of my instructors because I do schedule demos, I do schedule classes during that time. And that comes with building those relationships with my teachers, with my other managers, so they help my program grow. Whereas if I was doing it all by myself, which some coordinators do, some after school programs do, they do it all by themselves, which this industry is not a lone industry. You are surrounded by people who want to help you. And then you get into program funding. So as you have established in the needs assessment, you know who your target audience is, either age, demographic, or socioeconomic. So you know where your business is, you know who your business is for. You also need to establish any fees. And this can include specialty fees such as field trips or even just base fees to go to your facility. Now, if you charge them too high, or they want to go, if you charge them too low, you'll be losing money. So you have to set fees that will make your program financially self-sufficient. And unfortunately, I have to mention this step because you are running a business. Even though it is around children, you are running a business, and that is one of your priorities in this stage. So sometimes they do give discounts. I know I do discounts for families who are enrolling more than one student. That's always an option. If they are previously enrolled in the whole program and they have an anniversary date coming up, they don't pay certain fees. If they are enrolled in a school for an after-school program that's on site, maybe you give certain discounts rather than if they are a walk-in. Maybe you cover their field trip fees. There are so many different ways you can go about this, but the bottom line is you are a business and you have to treat that as such. This kind of goes into marketing and how you recruit people for, well, students rather, and parents for your business. So this goes hand in hand with your funding and your budget. If you have more students, of course, your budget will expand. If you have fewer students, your budget will be smaller. You can either market to social media. I do that. I do commercials. You can do flyers on cards. You can hand them out to students. Of course, word of mouth works best because those are current people who are in your services, use your services, and they're raving or ranting about you. This also can go the other side of the spectrum where they hate your services and they have personal knowledge that it's horrible and they bash you. You could lose tons of people that way. However, if your marketing and recruitment is top notch, then you should, and you're doing what you should be doing on your terms of giving them social skills, establishing their recreational skills, progressing, communicating with the parents, making that link to the school with tutoring or with what they previously did in school, then you should be getting business. There's no reason why an after school program should fail. And then you also have to do that evaluation. Now, evaluations come at each tier that I mentioned. You are always evaluating. You do not wait till the last step or in summer you evaluate what you did. And of course you do, but you never wait till the end. You should always be trying to be better. You evaluate once you get a new employee, if they are competent enough to do the curriculum that you've set for them. You evaluate any community members or businesses that you have relationships with, and if that relationship needs to stay or needs to be severed. You evaluate any programs and any program designs that you have established, because each year and throughout the year you should be getting new students, you should be expanding, and if your programs are out of date or if they're not up to par, you need to be constantly evaluating and getting new ones or establishing new ones. You should constantly be reviewing your equipment and getting new state of the art, because again, it is a business and you will be judged on your appearances. Now, I say judged on your appearances, but this is not, well, it is by the students, but it's also by the parents. So the other part of this management that I mentioned at the beginning is that parents manage how their students, how their children are participating in these after school programs. And they don't have a list as extensive as if you are an employee or a manager of these programs, but they do manage how their children participate. So they limit the number of activities that their children do. This can be either due to age, because as I mentioned, after school programs typically run from age 6 to all the way to 17. Now, this is the age of school, of course, and they have homework, they have other activities that they want to do, and this parent is choosing you. Now, as you've done in your needs assessment, you should know what that parent is wanting for their student, whether that be social skills, whether that be a specific recreational activity, whether that be tutoring and academia. This parent is choosing you and your facility. So if they are choosing you over a swim lesson that day, or they're choosing you over a soccer lesson, then you have to meet their needs. And of course, you do not change your whole entire program for one specific parent, but you should be focused on retention. That's why the interviews and the target groups and the focus groups come into play, and the constant evaluation does come into play, because you do need to know what your participants want, what they don't want, how they're progressing, and what needs to change it up. And then many parents do have scheduling issues, so you will have them till the kids rather from about 3:45, depending on when they get out, till about 6 to sometimes 7 at night. So if you cannot accommodate a student or a child for that long, then they won't choose you. If you're not fulfilling their needs for that long, then they won't choose you. If you have their child running around doing nothing, then they won't choose you. They'll have their child just running around in the backyard, which is free. So you need to be accommodating their schedule, but also fulfilling it with hearty, recreational, academia, social, mentally challenging activities throughout the time. Sometimes students stay for 30 minutes, and sometimes they stay for 3 hours in these activities. This comes with you, again, going back to program design, going back to quality staff, going back to curriculum. What can you do to keep retention, of course, and then to establish your program is best, your program is that enhancement on school. Parents also gauge their child's attention, and they gauge the progress that they see. So, of course, we've all run into those parents who want more, 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 and they don't see any progress. I myself have my instructors fill out progress sheets for the parents. It tells them who taught their child that day, what they learned, what they need to do at home to succeed, what they are doing next week. And it gives teacher's notes at the bottom. That way, no parent is in the dark about what their child was doing, because, of course, they were at work, so they didn't know, they didn't get to watch. I also take pictures and video if they will let me. I also take pictures and video, and I give them to them at their request, so that no parent is in the dark. However, if a parent does come to you and gauges that their child is failing a math class, but they thought that you did tutoring, why is their child failing? That comes down to you, because you do offer tutoring. Almost every after school program does offer tutoring. You need to possibly evaluate again, say, okay, we'll spend a couple more minutes tutoring, or 30 more minutes tutoring. Oh, my child's not succeeding in soccer. Of course, like I said, you do not change everything for one parent, but you do need to keep their considerations, do keep their concerns in consideration. You always need to be evaluating yourself on that child. If you see any child withdrawn, if you see any child failing anything, if you see any child not progressing, you need to evaluate. You need to be sending home teacher's notes, because after school programs are an enhancement on school. So you kind of do the same thing that school teachers do. You do evaluate, you do send home notes, you do link to school. Parents also like to keep in that winning is in perspective. So as you do these programs, you can either have them do competitions, you can either do workshops, you can do clubs, like I said, or open activities. So some parents, depending on the age, they do not like their child to constantly be told they lost or they won. And this you will gauge by the parents, you will gauge by the students, and if you have quality staff, then they'll be able to gauge that as well. That's another evaluation that you will need to do. A few different quality, lack of quality um, notifications that you should see in a program are if they have a poor quality staff. That's a definite indicator of a bad quality program that you need to step it up. If they have lack of performance measures, this can be if there's no way to quantify how well or how poor their staff is, that's constantly evaluating, or how well or how poor the children are proceeding. that comes with doing teacher's notes, that comes with telling the parents how they're doing and making that link. Lack of cooperation with community organizations. That's another sign that your after school program is lacking and that something needs to change. Because again, you are always not starting from scratch. So if this community organization is not wanting to work with you, that means something went wrong along the line and you need to be mending those fences. Because again, you are not a lone organization, you are not a lone partnership, and you should be working with others to possibly get discounts, possibly know what forms you need to fill out, possibly know what safety precautions you need to do, what we previously talked about in partnerships. So those are a few signs that something is wrong that you need to fix. Any lack of membership, that's any disenrollments or poor quality membership, that can also be a sign that you need to fix something that's possibly in your marketing. How are you marketing? If it's in a newspaper, that may not get to your target market. Some of the signs that you are succeeding in your program is quality personnel. And that comes with, obviously, in the hiring process, that comes with the evaluation, because as you develop your curriculum, you may need to hire new people, you may need to fire new people. I went through that myself just the other week. I had to evaluate my dance instructor, and I had to make a hard decision that she was no longer the person for the job, with our new students coming in and some of the students leaving just because of how she was teaching. I had to change my whole curriculum and see that she was not the person. And I can't lose students based off an instructor that's preventable, Consistent um, support from the principals is if you are in and on campus, support from your regionals, support from your bosses, I guess is a better way to say it, is a way to show that you are successful. No one would support you if you were doing bad. If you have constant training for your employees, constant equipment, management, just safety precautions, another way to say that you are wanting to succeed and that you have the safety in mind for your children there and have your students there. A balance between schoolwork and academia and recreation is a good way to gauge how successful you are. Because again, we are an enhancement on the school experience, and you do not want to focus on just being academia, because if they wanted their child to just go to tutoring, they would pay for that. If they wanted their child to just go to soccer lessons, then they would do that. You have to find that balance and that need that the individual child is possessing to make that balance and make yourself successful as an employee, as a director, whatever your role is there. Sometimes it's as the parent, you have to make that call. There are so many more. In conclusion, I would think that managing comes from two separate parts. Like I mentioned, you have to work with your parents to see how they manage their child at home and how you manage your child while they're away. If anything is a disconnect, that's on you to reach out and say what's going on. And if anything is a disconnect, you need to either talk to your staff, talk to your teachers, if you're on site, talk to your teachers, talk to your parents, talk to your students first off, and see where you can make that connection. Sometimes it comes with a simple addition of a program. Sometimes it comes with a reduction of a program because the student is bored or they don't want to participate. And I hate to say this cliche, but sometimes the student is always right, just like the customer is always right. It's what they want to do. And of course, you make the curriculum, you make the staff choices, but if they are not succeeding, if they are doing poorly, if they are reducing their enjoyment, then you have to make that adjustments. You're also working with the schools, which is the other part, because you want that enhancement. You're working with the schools to see how can I, as an outsider, because you're not the actual school, how can I, as an outsider, make this better for this student. So managing after-school programs is simple, but it's also difficult because you are their escape. You are their safe zone, as I mentioned earlier. You also need to be that action that places that balance for them in their lives. Remember that you are running a business, and sometimes it comes with retention rates, sometimes it comes with fees, sometimes it comes with working your budget. And if that means that you reduce a program because it's not getting as much attention, then you reduce that program. If it means that you terminate that staff member because they have not been as successful with teaching your specialty programs, then you terminate that staff member. Unfortunately, after school programs are a business and they are not free to attend or to run, so you have to make sure that your business is running smoothly, whether that be parents, staff, the school itself. You are in charge and you make all the final decisions in most cases.